Hi, I'm Em.
And my name is Bea.
And this is
Fangirls Anonymous. A quick warning, this podcast is not for kids.
We get into some pretty explicit stuff.
But if you're still with us and into that, welcome. Hello, Em. How are you this fine day?
I am great. I'm really excited for today's topic. Like, I haven't used that word in every episode, but I am, because we're getting into the down and dirty of some very interesting fandom history with a really cool guest. But before we do that, I just wanted to plug our Patreon. If you want to support us, you can. The link is in the show notes. If you don't want to, please listen to us forevermore. You do not have to worry about it, but it's there if you want to. Who are we interviewing today, Bea?
We are interviewing Rose, I'm going to say this both completely honestly and ironically, so take it for what it is, an academic who has studied in depth a really quintessential piece of fandom history, which is, yes, that fic, My Immortal.
Woo!
Very excited to be here.
Yes, hello, Rose. Welcome to the podcast.
It's awesome to be here.
Yeah, we're pretty cool. So, you wrote a Tumblr post that I found. And the original post was, what if I made my final project for a college class arguing My Immortal's cultural merit as a piece of digital folklore? Haha, just kidding. Unless? So that was the original post that you wrote on Tumblr. And then, it went into your adventures of doing that exact thing on the same post. How did that go for you? I just wanted to ask, first and foremost. But also, it's amazing that you actually did it. I just want to say.
I mean, the class I was taking was sort of like an introduction to folklore class, but I had a really cool professor where part of the syllabus that she wanted to discuss was how our understanding of folklore has evolved in the digital age with what is folklore on the internet versus how we traditionally think of folklore. Does the internet have its own forms of handed down storytelling and things like that?
Wow.
So when I saw that that was on the syllabus and we were going to be talking about it, my mind sort of went to, I feel like the closest equivalent would to this be copy pastas or fan fiction or just that one meme that everybody can recite off the top of their head. If we want to really get into it, you could probably even argue vines as a sort of folklore. But I figure if we're going down the fan fiction route, there's really only one that I can talk about. And I sort of made the initial Tumblr post just as oh, hee hee, wouldn't it be so funny if I staked a major part of my college grade doing an academic report on My Immortal. And I thought it was probably going to get 3 notes tops. And I don't really know how it took off, to be honest. Probably just one mutual reblogged it and it snowballed. But once it started doing numbers, I was well, shit, I got to commit to the bit now.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that I actually found that post way before you actually did the thing.
Mm-hmm. No, it had definitely already started going viral just when I was still in the process of pitching it to my professor and being hey, Kimberly, is this totally insane, or do you think I could make a project out of this? And she was no, this sounds fascinating, tell me more. And then when I actually did the report and posted the picture of myself in my shitty little Zoom square doing my silly little Ebony cosplay, that was when it just was I woke up and it had 10,000 notes.
Yeah, so you did your actual presentation in Ebony Darkness Dementia Ravenway cosplay, but also you did the same in your video titled How My Immortal Changed Fandom.
Oh, yeah.
And I loved that. It's hilarious. I will say that you could write a novel about this, I think. Not a novel, but you could write a book. You did? Somebody did?
Somebody tried to write a book about it.
Really?
It was probably my favorite of the debunked My Immortal authorship claims. I don't know how much we're going to get into those or not, but
oh yeah, no, I want to get into that.
One of the people who tried to claim they were the author of My Immortal got so far as getting a book deal about writing My Immortal before she got debunked and then chased off the internet forever.
Yeah, was that Rose Christo?
Yeah.
Okay. Holy crap. Yeah, no, I really want to get into that, but I think an academic text would be really cool. I know that you said you were planning on going into school again.
Yes.
Were you thinking about getting into this more, or were you?
So technically my major is creative writing, but at
Yeah,
the uni I go to, there's still that sort of like encompasses English in general. So I have access to like a lot of Shakespeare classes. The folklore classes I was taking were under the English program. So they definitely encourage you to dip your fingers in a lot of different things, which I think is good. It makes you a stronger writer.
that's cool. You're talking to two English majors, by the way.
Ooh, yay.
So we
Kinship.
understand. Yeah, so that's great. And you are thinking about doing more academic fan fiction stuff, right? Because that would
Yeah.
be cool. It seems like you have a knack for it.
I've been thinking about like doing a deep dive on just like other infamous fan fictions from throughout fandom and sort of even how like I feel like there are different generations of bad fan fiction.
Hmm. You should get into Twist and Shout. Do you know?
Which
That's
is
not
not
it's not
bad.
necessarily bad, but it is very famous for reasons. You should read that.
Um,
It's a supernatural fic.
mm.
Oh no! Did I hit a
Yeah.
button?
One of my very dear friends is like a Destiel truther, like all the way,
Oh.
like sincerely believes that like the CW like fucked over the entire final season and like Destiel was always going to be endgame. And like when she gets going, I let her go through it, but there's just everything I know about Supernatural has been like tangentially absorbed through her.
It was technically Endgame, I will say, but
I mean, I will say I don't know how many ships can say they were endgame only in certain languages.
well, in English it was half Endgame, and in Spanish it was full Endgame, which is great. Yoati. Yeah. Did you get a good grade for that
Yes, I did.
project? Okay, that's awesome. That's awesome. I wanted to know how your teacher kind of reacted to it, but it seemed like she was cool. She really liked it.
No, she definitely enjoyed the idea of like, let's talk about fan fiction as folklore.
Because it is. It just happens to be on the computer
Mhm.
and written by not technically authors, but I would say that they're technically authors, you know.
I mean, like, writing fan fiction was what gave me the confidence to springboard into like writing original fiction because I had these ideas that were like probably could have been propped up with OCs. I just didn't have the confidence at that point.
That's an interesting
Hmm.
idea. Like partly the reason why people write fan fiction is because they don't have the confidence to write it with characters that they don't know already. Interesting.
And I think some people definitely just write fan fiction for the joy of it. Like, I still write fan fiction to this day, but for me, it was definitely what made me sort of reassess writing is just like a fun hobby to something I might actually want to do for a living.
Yeah, I mean, what fandoms are you in?
It's a very mixed bag. Probably like my hyperfixation fandom for over a year now, so I don't know if it's a hyperfixation. It's just a way of life at this point, probably. It's the Gideon the Ninth series by Tamsin Murr. It's an ongoing series about lesbian necromancers in space. It's just wonderful.
Wow. Amazing.
There's my favorite anime of all time, which is actually older than I
Oh, it's an
am,
anime.
which is Revolutionary Girl Utena. And
Ah.
the people who hold the licensing rights for English care so little about them that the whole show is free on YouTube, and I would highly recommend watching it if you just want an anime that is not always coherent, but boy, is it such a time. Quite possibly the most media of anything ever made.
And then
Definitely look up like a trigger warning list before you watch it. Like, I don't want to send anyone into it blind, but like when I say for a show that was made in 1997, its handling of like queer subtext and like gender themes and just like all the intersections of what it's like to grow up different are really impressive. Like, still some of the best handling of those themes I think I've ever seen.
fascinating. I had never heard of it until I started talking to you about it.
No, if
That's
you
really
talk to me
cool.
for like any longer than 3 minutes, I will be like, and have you heard of the 1997 anime Revolutionary Girl Utena?
Have you watched Cowboy Bebop?
I've seen like the first several episodes. I honestly tend to prefer shoujo anime a little more. Like, I mean, I'm
Gotcha.
staring at my enormous Sailor Moon wall scroll as I'm recording this right now. So I did my time in the Sailor Moon fandom as well. Now that I mentioned that,
Are you really into anime fandom?
yeah, I would say so. My tastes definitely skew a little like on the weirder side, is probably safe to say. But like Sailor Moon, Madoka Magica, Utena, those are probably some of my top titles.
Nice. Yeah, we haven't done. Actually, is Miraculous Ladybug an anime? I don't even know who it is.
That's a
I don't
loaded
think
question.
we did a lady noir.
Yeah, we're gonna say for the sake of everybody's sanity that for this conversation it is not an anime.
No, I wouldn't say so.
Well, other than that possible anime, but not. We haven't done any anime, I don't think. We did talk about some tropes from Japan, but we haven't done any anime stuff. We really should we need to get going on that, Bea.
Case closed. Not a shoujo.
Oh, yes. Detective Conan. We did talk about Detective Conan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not shoujo by any stretch, though. That is extremely shonen.
No, I did my time in high school actually as president of an anime club for like half a year before I realized I don't want to be queen of the weebs. I didn't ask for any of what this is bringing my way, so...
That's cool. You're in a lot of anime stuff. A lot of shonen. No. Yes, shonen. I really don't.
Shoujo.
Shoujo. See, I don't know much. I'm terrible. My favorite anime is, well, Cowboy Bebop is amazing, but my favorite anime that I have watched over and over and over again is One Punch Man, and that makes me super basic. So.
No, it's all right. Listen, like everybody's got their show. Like there's very few shows where I would like actually judge someone as a person if they said it's their favorite.
If you like anime at all, you just can't judge anybody, in my opinion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's quite possibly the biggest glass house you could throw at someone.
That is the biggest glass house you can throw at someone. You said in your post on Tumblr that your teacher asked you to do a second longer presentation about an authorship debate or about authorship debate. How did that go?
So just because the original project was meant to be like a final presentation that would be in a block with several other classmates, I had to do an extremely condensed version of what became the YouTube video I uploaded later on. So I only had like 10 minutes that I mostly spent talking about like establishing what my Immortal is and then arguing my idea of like this is sort of a way that fandom passes on like oral tradition. But I did mention towards the end, like, I think part of the allure that my Immortal is still relevant for is that we never found out who the original author was. There's sort of like, maybe the real Tara Gillespie was the friends we made along the way, you know?
Yeah, okay. Talking about that. So you think it was Tara Gillespie who wrote the fic, not Rose Christo? Because in the video you just automatically started talking about Tara as the author, and I know you kind of get into it a little bit, but I want to know more about your opinion on who actually wrote it.
So my personal theory that like it's not super backed up by anything, it's just my personal reading, like I feel like it was originally uploaded to some degree of real earnestness. And then as it started like doing the numbers it was doing, which were insane for fanfiction.net back in the day, like it was not normal for a fic to be getting thousands of reviews for every single chapter update. I feel like the author might have seen the attention it was getting and decided to start leaning into it a little bit more, and from there it just escalated into this weird real-time fanfiction performance art of throwing everything at the wall just to see what stuck. And that was how we wound up with stuff like Voldemort being called Tom Bombadil, or like Marty McFly randomly showing up so Ebony could go back in time and like seduce Voldemort so he wouldn't be evil.
Oh my god. Wait. Did she seduce Voldemort or Tom?
So, like, it gets a little foggy in, like, the second half, and everything's just gone completely off the rails by that point, but she gets, like, sent back in time to, like, I assume what would be the Marauders era, and is like, Ebony, you need to seduce Tom Riddle so that he falls in love with you and will never become Voldemort. And then there's, like, angst about that since she's already in the love triangle with, like, Draco and Harry, who's been renamed Vampire, and it's so much all the time, and every word of this fic is like 10 words you're trying to process.
It feels like it would have been Herculean effort just to write it. Like, either it was really easy to write or really hard to write. I can't imagine that there's a middle.
No, that's my thing. Like, if this was a troll, they were just so insanely committed to the bit. Like, I just can't imagine that many people would have been willing to put that much time into it.
Yeah, there are some people who consider it a satire of
I
fan
think
fiction.
there's validity to that. Like, I'm not here to be like a My Immortal truther or anything like that. Like, whatever your theories are regarding its origin, they're probably just as valid as anyone else's. But I don't know. I feel like if it was entirely conceived from the very beginning as just like taking shots at the rest of the Harry Potter fanfiction community, it's so much effort.
Yeah, it seems like so much effort, and I haven't even tried to read it.
Mhm.
Like, I couldn't even get through the synopsis of it on Wikipedia. Like, that's how hard it is
No, like,
to read.
at a certain point, I would have to imagine when you stare at Ebony Darkness Dementia Raven Way long enough, she starts to stare back at you.
Yeah,
Like, you would have to just
the
become the
void.
mask at some point.
The void stares back at you. It's terrifying. We're really hyping this up as terrible, but it's because it is. Like, it's really bad.
Oh, it absolutely is. Like, my argument is not My Immortal was secretly good all along and we all just misunderstood it. It's bad. It's really bad. To be fair, you need to have a very high IQ to understand My Immortal.
Well, I apparently have a very low IQ because I don't understand it at all. Do you know how long it is? I didn't actually look that up. It's 40. I know it's 44 chapters, but
I think it was intended to be 45, but part of just like
Oh,
the
no.
sheer beauty of it is that it cuts off in what I assume was intended to be the penultimate chapter, and we just never got the resolution.
How does every piece of information slot so beautifully with the other puzzle, with the whole puzzle? It's
Mhm.
I can't. I actually can't with this thing. It's like it's become its own beast. I wonder what it was like being in fandom at that time, because it was released in 2006 and it was finished in 2007. I wonder what it was like being in fandom at that time and being like, "Oh, XXX, oh gosh, what is it? XXX Bloody Wrist 666 XXX released a new chapter of My Immortal." What was that like?
I can't imagine like getting on the Discord call nowadays and all flocking to AO3.
It's true. My Immortal Discord. What the hell would have that been? Holy crap. Oh, oh my god. I'm not sure if it is a satire or not because I haven't really read it. With our perspective right now, it seems like more of a satire because of how high the bar has been set for writing in fan fiction today. But in 2006, that was a different time.
Oh my god. Like, the amount of Harry Potter fanfictions that had almost identical plots as far as, like, you've got your
Okay.
very obvious author self-insert, like, in their Hogwarts house of choice, which was usually Slytherin, just in Hogwarts, fucking around, doing whatever, romancing whoever the author's favorite Harry Potter character is. That was its own genre of Harry Potter fanfiction back in the day. Like, My Immortal is literally just the one that blew up.
And do you think it's because it was the worst, or like what was the reason behind it blowing up in that way compared to other fics that were very similar?
I think that part of it was the timing, because My Immortal went up after a lot of the smaller Harry Potter fanfiction communities on like LiveJournal and independent sites had started going down. So everybody was flocking onto fanfiction.net all at once, and a lot of like the predecessor fics sort of got lost in everybody uploading all of their stuff onto the Harry Potter archive all at once. But then here comes My Immortal, fresh at the top of the page. It's being pretty regularly updated, so it's one of the first fics you see. And then everything sort of starts to build on itself. Like, other people see how many reviews it's getting, how many hits it's getting, so they're like, well, clearly everybody else is clicking on their fic. There's got to be a reason why. So I think there was probably initially just people reading it and being like, wow, this is really incredibly bad. But at a certain point,
Yeah.
I think part of it was just My Immortal was the one that got lucky or unlucky, depending on how you want to look at it.
Was it always hate reading, or was there at first, if you know this, was there at first a group of people that were like, "I'm interested"?
I mean, I have to imagine so. There was enough of
Yeah.
a market for that kind of fan fiction that it was what people were writing.
It was truly a convergence of time and circumstances that made it big, and also cemented it into the people who aren't even in fandom know about My Immortal. you know,
Mhm.
like they know it as the bad fan fiction, the fan fiction that represents all the bad qualities of fan fiction.
I mean, it definitely helped that like this was also a Harry Potter fan fiction, and Harry Potter was like the fandom of the mid 2000s. Like, there's just no denying that.
Yeah.
But still, like, it had to become the name people within the fandom knew before it could take on that status of like even a person who probably hasn't read fan fiction since middle school still knows of My Immortal at least.
Was the Harry Potter fandom at the time becoming more cringe? Or
I
I don't
don't
know if
think
that's the
the
wrong question, but
cringification of Harry Potter really started until these last couple of years, where it's like, I mean,
uh,
I made my most of my farewells with Harry Potter right around when I think a lot of people did, when J.K. Rowling just went full turf on Maine, and there was like, yeah, there's really no coming back from this. And since then, I think a lot more people have gotten critical of Harry Potter, or people who support it without really being willing to acknowledge that you can't really death of the author a person who is actively using the shitloads of money they make off of this franchise to harm trans people. But like up until that point, I think it was still very widely accepted to be like a diehard Harry Potter fan. I mean, I
oh,
definitely was.
absolutely. But with fic though, maybe I mean I'm not really in the Harry Potter fandom, never really was, but from I got the feeling that it was a while ago that people started not really being into Harry Potter fic as much.
I think within the last couple of years, like quarantine and TikTok and all of that have
Hmm.
definitely normalized reading fan fiction a lot more. There
True.
was probably an era of like the late 2000s, early to mid 2010s, though, where like if you read fan fiction or you wrote fan fiction, you had to be very selective about who you disclosed that information to. Like,
So
I remember
true.
being in high school and like being terrified that someone was looking over my shoulder at like me on fanfiction.net, like, oh, this is going to ruin all of my non existent cred with my classmates.
Yeah, I didn't have any friends, so I didn't really care if anybody saw that I
Mm-hmm.
was reading fic. Um, yeah, the youngins don't know how good they got it.
Uh,
I don't really mean that. I actually don't really mean that because I didn't have anybody who made fun of me for fic or anything like that. Tumblr was a very welcoming space for newbies getting into
oh,
fic, I
yeah.
found, especially at that time. But yeah, for me, it's for some reason I have this idea that the Harry Potter fandom kind of died a while ago, even before She Who Shall Not Be Named died in the eyes of the fandom. But I think I'm wrong, right?
I feel like it's almost become adjacent to the same idea as like Disney adults, where you have
Oh.
a very strong section
Mm.
of it that is just people who grew up reading the books and remember as like each book and movie was coming out. So they have a lot of childhood nostalgia associated with
Oh.
that. And that's kind of why they still hang on to it and like participate in the fandom now, even if they haven't really actively engaged with it for a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
That's a really good point.
And obviously, like, if you go in like the Harry Potter tag on TikTok, you still see plenty of like middle schoolers and high schoolers who are engaging with it for the first time now. But I
Oh, yeah.
definitely think the monster of a fandom presence it still has, in spite of everything that's gone on in the last couple of years, is very much carried by those people who have put in the work.
We're not even going to
Hmm.
talk about Miss Scribe.
Oh man.
Oh my god. There are these really interesting like 2-hour long videos about in-depth look of what happened on those forums. If
Hmm.
I'll try, let me write that down so I can get the link for that, but the link will be in the show notes for those videos.
But do you think it's fair to say though that some of the infamy is also kind of what's carrying it insofar as the actual fandom engagement has definitely changed over the last couple of years, but people who because I can tell you if you type in the best fan fiction in a search engine, the first thing that will pop up is a list article, and almost all of them are either Marvel fan fiction or Harry Potter fan fiction, and most of the ones that get the
Mm-hmm.
most glowing praise are Harry Potter. So, I guess for people just starting out, do you feel like that's some of the lingering is just the fact that you have all of these stories in this presence that has kind of accumulated over the years that just sticks around?
Oh yeah, like Harry Potter and the MCU are definitely both juggernauts of fandom. Like for one thing, they're very OC friendly, but they also have just like a ton of canon characters, a lot of whom might not be super fleshed out. So even if you don't want to go the OC route, you can still take a character who doesn't have a lot of love in the source material and be like, okay, well, now you're my character. And with both fandoms, like Harry Potter and MCU, odds are there's at least one other person in the fandom who really, really also loves that character and is going to be happy to see content of them.
Yeah, I also feel like there's, when I think the big well-known scandals, I guess, for lack of a better term, that kind of dust up to the point where you get them in the mainstream eye, I think Harry Potter, because, you know, there's My Immortal, which is its own thing, and, you know, Miss Scribe, and Cassandra Clare,
Oh my
and
god.
Oh,
geez,
man.
frick, Snape wives, okay?
Oh
like, all Harry Potter.
I mean, a fandom that size, you're just gonna have some, like, the Eyes Wide Shut party happening in the corner that everyone vaguely knows of, but, like, you don't talk about it.
I love that so
Harry
much.
Potter had a lot of those.
Yeah. No,
Oh my
Cassandra Clare to
gosh.
this day is, like, the final boss of YA publishing who's just never gonna be taken down, but I don't want to bring that down on you, so we can change the subject from her.
No, I see. Okay, I've posed this question in a past episode, but I want to know if she wonders or if she knows what she has done to fandom. Like, I bet she does in depth. I bet she just
Yeah.
carries that with her every day.
Yeah.
What a fascinating story. We're gonna have to get into that, aren't we? Eventually, not this episode, but eventually.
That is
Okay.
a whole other saga.
That is absolutely a whole. That is like a series worth, in my opinion. You got a lot of attention because of, at least a lot of Tumblr attention because of this post, right? And it's amazing.
Which translates to like $2 in real world clout.
Not even that. I want to know, like, how did you know what My Immortal was? Like, when did you realize that it existed? Tell me more about your history with My Immortal.
I think just the first fandom space I was ever on, it was a message board, and God, I miss message boards so much. Like, not even Tumblr gives me quite that same thrill. But it was the official message board for the Warrior Cats series by Aaron Hunter.
Amazing.
And I got
love it.
on there, like, I was still in elementary school, because, like, probably, like, 4th grade was when I just fell head over heels for those books. It was bad. Like, every single joke you can think of for, like, the Warrior Cats kids in elementary school, that was me. But, like, on that forum, obviously there was, like, sections for fan fiction and, like, roleplay and just, like, talking about, like, the books one by one, or, like, the mini arcs they each had. So that was my first exposure to, like, fandom culture in general.
Yeah.
And probably it would have been there that I first heard My Immortal tossed around, and I asked somebody else, like, what is My Immortal? Like, what are you referencing with this? And I got, like, sent a link to it, and from there I was like, wow, this is terrible. Tell me more. And it was very much still in that era of, like, the horrible time when anyone who so much as, like, had a female OC who did anything was going to get accused of being a Mary Sue. Oh, man, it was bad. I never want to go back to that. Like, I still see it rearing its head in internet discourse sometimes, and I'm like, let her have rainbow hair. Why is this such a problem for you?
Oh my gosh. You were in 4th grade and on internet chat stuff? That's amazing. Why can't I remember the word?
I mean, the Warrior Cats forums, they were
Forum, there we go.
kind of authoritarian in terms of how the moderators ran them. Like, it was very much a one strike and you are out system, so it could have been a lot worse, but definitely, like, it was my introduction to pretty much everything relating to social media, and then I sort of graduated to fanfiction.net from there, found my way onto Tumblr, and I would still say Tumblr is my main hub. Actually, no, it would have been, like, I was probably 10 or 11, actually, because I joined, I remember, in 2011. Probably, like, 5th grade, maybe. I don't know. It was, like, just over summer break, I, like, found the forums, and I was like, whoa, there's other people who like this series, and from there it was all a wash.
I will say that I had a lot of friends around me at that time that loved Warrior Cats, but I never got into them.
I was, like,
Opposite
the one
experience.
who dragged a lot of my friends into it. I do not know how I didn't become a furry, because my childhood checked off like literally every prerequisite you can imagine for like becoming a furry. And then I think right before I got into high school, when I would have been locked in, I just like shunted it all onto my best friend and like took a hard right turn into being a theater kid instead, which is arguably worse. But
Oh, no. As a fellow theater kid, it is worse. 100%. I'd much rather hang out with furries right now than any theater kid. Not that I don't want to hang out with you. Anyway. Yeah. B, what were you again? Were you a furry or a theater kid?
There
What
are
a
only
question.
two genders.
Neither. If we're talking about the series of books, I had probably the only other kind of experience, which was I was, to my knowledge, the only kid who read it and didn't have any friends related to it
Oh my god.
until we hit middle school, when I got done with the series, and then everybody read it.
Oh, wow.
And so I was a person who was like, well, I don't read it anymore, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I know about the cat that his last name ends with star. What is his name? I can't remember now.
That's several cats.
The main
There's
character.
Firestar.
I think it's
and-
Firestar,
and
right?
Blorbo Star from my books.
Oh man. Yeah, I had a friend who was super duper into them and was just like, you need to read them, and I tried it and I was just like, yeah, it's fine. I don't care. I don't really care. I don't really care about these cats. I'm sorry, man.
There's just like a chip in some children's minds, I think, that like it never activates unless you pick up that first book at a very specific, vulnerable time in your life, and you just latch on to all of these anthropomorphic cats.
Latent furry ability. Oh man, that needs to be a t-shirt. For only furries.
I like to think of it as us humans are at least partially hardwired for like animal totemism.
Oh,
and so
Mm.
there are certain
Brother bear.
children that just like there are bear kids, but there's specifically like there was the cat group of children,
Horse girls.
just like there was horse girls.
Oh my gosh.
It's just
Dragon
and
girls.
and about the time you hit the end of elementary school, you get the wolf children.
Yep.
Like
Mhm.
I don't know, there's something about
They're yipping.
animals.
They're
that
yipping
they just
across
are,
the yard.
Yeah,
No, I remember
there's
like
just
the
there's
fictional warriors universe that like I dragged all of my friends into. I had to have one clan that was like a dog clan specifically to like appease my one friend who was a wolf girl, but I had like converted over to warriors.
Oh.
And we had to have like this world building for like why all of like our fictional clans were willing to like cohabitate with this one dog clan that also spoke cat now. Oh my god, we were in so deep.
We have been talking about warrior cats for so long that I'm gonna have to put it in the summary
That's what
that we talked about
happens.
warrior cats while talking about my Immortal. Oh man. Not to change the subject too abruptly, but in your video you said that you noticed that the author shipped Draco and Harry in My Immortal, and you didn't want to get into that. Will you get into that?
It's more so the fact that like even though there are lines within the story that you can't really read as anything other than very homophobic, the author also has like notes about how she hopes that Harry and Draco are going to get together. And I think that's a phenomenon that we still kind of unfortunately see perpetuated in fandom today, where like people think just because they write like MM/fic that makes them an ally, even if everything else they do is like not helpful at best and actively homophobic at worst. Just sort of like fanfiction's not activism, kids.
Interesting. Yeah, it's an activity. So somehow she shipped Draco and Harry while still being homophobic.
Yeah.
That is so My Immortal. Oh my god. I feel bad for Evanescence, okay? I feel bad for them because there's this fic that was terrible.
What gets me is they know about it too. Like
They
Amy
do?
Lee has been asked at a concert, "Do you know about My Immortal?" And she was like, "Yeah, I've read it."
Well, she kind of cosplays as Ebony
Doesn't she?
Darkness
I
Dimension.
mean, really,
Ravenway.
isn't Amy Lee cosplaying Ebony at this point?
Oh, I love it so much. Or Ebony took her look. We don't know exactly. You can't know anything. You can't strictly know anything about My Immortal, in my opinion. Okay.
It's all part of a bigger conspiracy. It was her who wrote it. and it was heralding this slow transformation.
Honestly, I'd buy it. Amy Lee wrote My Immortal is not the wildest theory that's out there.
That should be the
Just
title
some
of
kind
the
of
book
5D
you write.
chess.
That should be the title of the book you write, and that's it. And you never talk about her. Why is this such a funny thing? Oh my god. Okay. So I think that the biggest question that we can ask you is, why is My Immortal a piece of internet folklore?
I mean, you could have stopped at why is My Immortal, if I'm being perfectly honest. But I think it's just, so when it initially hit, there was the reactions of like, oh my god, this is so bad, everybody needs to read it so we can all laugh at how bad it is. Haha, isn't fanfiction so stupid? But like, because it made such an impact on fandom to the point where like it was cited for years as like every example of how not to write fanfiction or like how not to make an OC, everything sort of came back around into now we all look back on that in the like, I feel like for the most part, fandom's gotten a lot better about quote unquote cringe content. Like at this point, I see people writing like OCX canon character fanfic on AO3, or just sort of writing a fic that's more them doing whatever they want than really following the set rules of canon. And it's like, yeah, they're doing what they want to do. Like, let them have fun. Like, it's not like anyone is doing this for a job.
True.
So at this point, the people who were there in the beginning or sort of came into fandom in the aftermath of that, when it was very much like, oh, you don't want to be like My Immortal or Terrage a Lesby. We look back on it now, and it's almost feeling a sort of kinship with whatever idea of Terrage a Lesby we have in our heads of like, if we assume that this was just a teenage girl writing whatever fanfiction made her happy and she didn't realize it was going to become a universally acceptable target of ridicule, like, she didn't deserve that. And I feel like the best that we can do now is try to carry that banner forward for her and make fandom a more welcoming environment. But there's also the side of it that's like, most of the people who were lampooning My Immortal just for like a mean-spirited YouTube clickbait or something, like, they've moved on now. The people who are keeping it alive are keeping it alive because there's something about it they genuinely just enjoy. Like, I've been at conventions where people will do dramatic readings of My Immortal and the entire panel is like audience participation, calling people up onto the stage to like act out the most iconic scenes from My Immortal.
It's like Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think it's almost sort of the same, like, Rocky Horror Picture Show or, like, other sort of cult classic films, like Repo or, I don't know, like, even Showgirls or something like that. They have that so bad it's good reputation at this point. It's like,
well,
you can't look away from how bad it is.
I would say Rocky Horror is actually good, but...
No, yeah.
But yeah.
But, like, when it came out, it was definitely, like, original audiences found it, like, too campy or, like, too risque or just, like, it didn't land with the people it was originally meant to land with.
Like The Monster in the Lagoon or The Blob or those old 50s horror movies that everybody makes fun of now, but people really like them again. I don't know. It's interesting. But then again, My Immortal is not good enough to like. in my opinion, even ironically.
Oh, no.
But it's fun to make fun of.
Exactly. And at this point, like, a lot of people who wrote fan fiction at that same age and time, you can look at that and be like, oh man, I remember when the fan fiction I wrote was just like this self-indulgent and awful, and I was there too, so I've almost earned the right to laugh at it.
Do you think it has some Mystery Science Theater vibes too, where you're going back and watching it to laugh at it, but also to be, because it's funny, it's fun to sit there and not expect anything out of it.
It's also nostalgic for a lot of people our age and older.
Yeah. No, like, it's definitely fun to just, like, if you're with a group of friends where you know you can whip out a copy of My Immortal that you have open in a tab on your phone at all times and be like, who wants to do a dramatic reading of the first chapter of My Immortal? There is something very fun and transformative about, like, having other people in the room bouncing it off with them.
Oh.
Like, I know when I'm at a party, I can just launch into the opening monologue of My Immortal and get kicked out of a room pretty much anywhere. Because everybody knows what it's from, even if they don't want to admit it.
Oh, man. You must have some really cool friends. For them to automatically know what you're talking about.
I mean, like, all you gotta do is say, "Hi, my name is Ebony Darkness Dementia Raven Way," and people are already screaming, "Leave."
Cringe. We almost never use the word cringe in this podcast, I would say. But I think this is an episode in which we can use it pretty easily.
Oh, yeah.
So what other piece of traditional folklore could or would you compare My Immortal to?
I think folklore, when we think about it, folklore isn't always passed down because it's good necessarily, or it's like a satisfying story structure. Folklore is passed down culturally because something about it is deemed important enough to preserve. So, like, you've got your traditional, like, Grimm's fairy tales, that's a form of folklore. Any, like, indigenous storytelling technique, that's all folklore.
Aesop's fables.
Yeah, exactly. And, like, not to compare My Immortal to, like, thousands upon thousands of traditional storytelling. I feel like when we look at My Immortal now, there's also that extra layer of understanding this came from a fundamentally different culture surrounding fanfiction. Like, did Archive of Our Own even exist in 2006? Because if it did, it would have been in, like, very early infancy.
It started in 2009.
Yeah. So, like, this was being posted to a fanfiction that most of the community considers, like, circling the drain at this point.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting the idea that you brought up that there's something important about the stories. It's not that they're necessarily good or bad. It's just that a lot of people who have heard it consider something regarding that piece of story or piece of storytelling important enough to remember and tell other people. And I wonder if that is the main reason why everybody knows about My Immortal. This is bad, and it's important enough and bad enough for me to tell you. And eventually it will evolve into us having fun making fun of it.
Well, it's the same reaction as, like, the Star Wars holiday special.
Yeah.
Like, I remember a couple Thanksgivings ago when everyone was under quarantine. It was, like, me and one other friend. They just came over to my house, and we, like, mainlined Star Wars all day. And eventually we were like, well, shit, it's Thanksgiving. We have to watch the Star Wars holiday special. And then when we did, we were like, wow, this is terrible. I want to watch the next 30 minutes of it.
Yeah, Mark Hamill doesn't even look like himself. Like, it looks like a different actor. But it's him. Have you seen those photos of him?
Leia's Life Day Carol at the end.
Yeah. Have you seen those photos of him from the Germany one that he did? In all German?
Yes.
And he didn't even know German? Oh, it's so funny. It's so funny. It's true, though. Like, if Harry Potter wasn't that big of a fandom, like Star Wars that is that big of a fandom, then those two pieces of media I don't think would be very big.
No, definitely not.
They're bad enough in big enough fandoms that people see them and want to remember them. And I think that's amazing.
And it's like, I can definitely name some other hilariously bad fan fictions off the top of my head, but they did not, the fandom that they came from was ultimately what held them back more than anything else, because they just didn't have, like, the reach that Harry Potter or, like, a Star Trek fan fiction or something else along those lines would have.
So are there any other fics that could also be considered, like, internet folklore, that maybe are as big as My Immortal, or like what you just said, like maybe lesser known?
So my personal favorite one, actually, obviously My Immortal is, like, the crown jewel. I think My Immortal even transcends fanfiction. It's just its own piece of art at this point. Going back to Warrior Cats for a second, the, like, one really infamous fanfiction in the Warrior Cats fandom was a fic called Star Kit's Prophecy, that also just checks off so many of the boxes of, like, what constituted a terrible Warrior Cats fanfiction in, like, the late 2000s when I think it was written. Like, the OC is just, like, a rainbow cat who was born with, like, a star mark on her forehead, so her mom names her Star Kit, and she's literally, like, Cat Jesus within the fanfiction. And when she eventually becomes the leader of the clan, like, she realizes her name is going to be Star, and it's a whole plot point about what a stupid name that'll be, so she has to change it to something else. And then, like, she gets given the Warrior Cat 10 Commandments that she, like, delivers onto the clans. And there's this really weird, like, Christian fundamentalist slant to the entire fan fiction until 3/4 of the way through, when the author has a sexuality crisis and starts wondering if she's a lesbian, which causes Star Kit to also start wondering if she's a lesbian. And then, like, in the final chapter has her just becoming a sentient ball of light and screaming at all the clans to accept Jesus, motherfuckers, before ascending ascending to a higher plane of existence. And like if you can read Star Kid's Prophecy, it is on the same level of borderline illegibility as My Immortal, but boy oh boy is it such a fantastic ride.
Oh my god. How does the cat become rainbow? Also, I feel like
that's what you're hung up on?
I don't know. There are too many things to talk about.
Listen, your Warrior Cat's OC having improbable fur color for a cat was like the bottom of the barrel as far as shitty Warrior Cats fanfiction goes.
Star reminds me so much of Moon on Tumblr.
Yeah.
Moon is just one of those amazing posts on Tumblr that the next time you find it, you're like, this is it. This is Moon. Oh my god.
Right?
Oh my god. I'm
like
crying.
It feels like seeing an old friend from high school at like the grocery store or something.
When you were talking about a kid who was a being that was born with a kind of a mark on their forehead and ended up being Jesus. Very Harry Potter of you. Very Harry Potter of them.
Yeah.
Even though he wasn't born with a scar, but oh my gosh, that is so funny to me. Oh my god.
No, Star Kid's Prophecy has a very special place in my heart.
I want to read it, but I don't want to read it. Same with My Immortal.
And that's another one where, like, I legitimately could not tell you if this was written as a satire or not, because, again, the level of commitment it would have taken, like, there's so many layers to it.
Just the way that you described it, it felt very 10-year-old writing a first story within a fandom that they love.
No, I can absolutely imagine like some 12-year-old like fundy kid who's never known anything else writing it, and then like she realizes she has a crush on her best friend one day, and like the only way she can process this is by projecting it onto her Warrior Cat's OC.
And the only way she can feel comfortable enough writing fanfiction is if she puts a lot of like values that she has grown up with in it. Like as a fundy kid.
No, like there's literally a scene where Star Kid is just given the 10 commandments from the Bible and she delivers them unto the clans.
Becomes a ball of light, like well, she's keeping with the rainbow theme because light is just all of the colors, so you know, that works.
Like, honestly, that's going to be my follow-up to this. Like, Star Kid's Prophecy was actually, like, the journey of queer adolescent self-discovery you never knew you needed.
You have to do a video on that, please. I'm waiting for the chime on my phone to tell me that you have uploaded that video on your YouTube channel.
I'll start writing it the second we're done recording this.
Please do that, and we will put the link on in a future episode. But yeah, no, that's hilarious. I love that you have that just in your back pocket. Oh yeah, no, I also have this warrior cats thing. Oh my god, it's so funny.
No, Warrior Cats is like you can check out anytime, but you can never leave. Like, to this day, I still follow some people on Tumblr who are, like, caught up on Warrior Cats, and I see fan art of them, and I'm like, woohoo, you go, you funky little cat who I think might be, like, the daughter of one of my favorite characters.
Oh my god. I can't even imagine getting into that. I don't have the gene. There's no gene in me that's like, I need to know about these cats. Okay, well, have you heard of that, Bea? I hadn't heard of that fic.
No, I hadn't, but I will freely admit that Warriors Cats is in a specific brain box for me, along with several other fandoms that have just, like, they've got a big red caution sticker on it. So,
have you read any fic from Warrior Cats?
No, I don't really, like, actively seek out Warrior Cats fanfiction. That one was more like, I was on a Warrior Cats forum, to be fair, so if any fanfiction other than My Immortal was going to frequently come up in discussion, it was going to be our My Immortal.
Did you, Bea, though? Did you read Warrior Cats fanfiction?
No.
Okay. It seems like a very specific type of fandomer doing that. Is it big? Is it a big fandom? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, like, again, it's one of those where I feel like a lot of the people who are still in the fandom now are the people who read it growing up and just have, like, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm an active participant in it anymore, but any cringe I associated with it when I was, like, 14 and desperately trying to, like, conform, capital C, like, I don't feel that anymore. I'm just like, yeah, Warrior Cats. I mean, I was at a PowerPoint party with some friends last year where one of my friends, their entire PowerPoint was just, I'm going to do 5 shots in a row and then drunkenly explain the plot of Warrior Cats so that I can, one of it that I can remember, having not read these books in 10 years.
Cats, Divine Right of Kings. There isn't a whole lot.
I mean, yeah, that's it.
Wow. So what kind of fic do you like to read that isn't bad fic for college stuff?
Definitely, I am pretty firmly in like the FF side of fandom, that 95% of my ships are some form of FF. Definitely like either fic that is set within the canon realm, but sort of has fun with it, like sort of lets the characters cut loose a little bit more than they do in canon. Not necessarily slice of life, but just things like, even if it's sort of a more tongue-in-cheek look at whatever a canon event is, I think that's always very fun. It's that, or just like AUs that completely deviate from the source material. Like, I have 400 hours logged in Fire Emblem Three Houses, because that was the game I was playing during quarantine, and probably all the fics I have bookmarked for it are like Regency AU, or Phantom of the Opera AU, or something like that.
God, Regency AUs are so fun, aren't they?
Yeah. No, I love just a good AU that is completely out there as far as the source material, but you can tell the author's running with it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We're going to take all of these lovely characters and ignore everything else but who they are, and then make a story.
They go to community college now.
Yes! Oh my god.
Also, can I just say, the college AU is so superior to the high school AU. I don't know why we as a society cannot accept this.
I feel like it's stages of growth.
It's stages of growth. Well, so much growth happens in college.
Yeah.
No, but like in terms of your comfort level, because if you hit a high school AU in high school or right when you go to college, you're like, oh, this is comfortable and familiar, and I get it, and I can kind of internalize what's going on and contextualize it, and it all makes sense. And then when you get through college, you're like, wait a minute, everything makes more sense and is more fun and interesting and less constrictive and weird and clicky if you just make it in college instead. And you're like, oh, this is way better. So it's, you have to grow into it.
I guess so.
Yeah, younger people are not necessarily going to be like, I'm 13 and I'm going to write a college AU. You have to be an older person to write a college AU.
I just like to see how you're going to do, and they were roommates in a high school AU, though. Just saying.
Boarding school.
Boarding school!
Oh, I guess so.
Oh, private school? Absolutely. Yep, that's that. So, we have talked a lot about My Immortal and Warrior Cats. 2 things I never would have expected.
This was not my plan. I'm
so excited. The Warrior Cat people are going to be real excited listening to this episode and not even knowing it when they click on it. Just to end the episode, Rec Corner! What is your rec? We asked you to bring in a favorite fic, and would you like to tell us about it?
Well, I mentioned at the top of the show, one of my favorite book series is Gideon the Ninth, so my fic rec is from that series. The fic is called It Came from Planet Slut. And it's sort of what I was talking about earlier, where it's set within the canon verse, but it's just this like completely implausible scenario of what if we take these 4 characters and we make them go to a gay club? And one of them is so not here for it that she inadvertently becomes the celebrity of everyone else in the gay club.
When you put off that don't fuck with me energy and then everybody fucks with you.
Exactly. That's literally just the plot of the entire story.
Oh, that's amazing. Oh my god. And welcome to Planet... What is it? Planet Nebula Slut? What is it?
It Came from Planet Slut.
Planet Slut. Oh my god. I love the title so much. Don't worry, everybody listening. There's going to be a link. Go ahead and read that.
Even if you know nothing about these books, please just read it. It's very fun.
Yeah, is there like a big steep learning curve though when it comes to canon?
I think you could probably figure out what makes each character tick pretty easily. I mean, it's basic. I feel like the author just wanted an excuse to like dress all the characters up in silly little outfits and like.
You should also just read the book.
Yeah, I've heard it's great from both of you.
Yeah, please read the books. They're fantastic. There's 2 more that are still coming out, so you've got plenty of time to hop on this bandwagon and join us in the skeleton circus.
My rec this week is Just One Mistake and I Lost You Forever by Lilithiumwords, and it is a Hobbit fandom rec. It is an AU in which It's somewhat nebulous in time period. I think it's supposed to be modern, but Bilbo is a medium, and he is asked to go to this very large, imposing, and empty fortress, which is supposedly filled with ghosts, and clear them all out. And it's kind of spooky, kind of sweet. It's got a little bit of a twist at the end that's definitely worth reading. So it's also not very long. So go read it quickly.
Before I wreck mine, I just want to say we are not going to be linking my Immortal, so don't worry. That is not in the red corner this episode.
You can find it easily enough.
If you want to find it, if you dare to find it, you can find it. So my rec this week is Something Smart to Do by kianspo, which, okay, so I've been in Spurk hell for like 2 weeks and just consistently reading Spurk all day, every day. It's been amazing, but it's been hell. And this one makes me so happy. It is a 5+1 fic, and it is about Spock and Kirk in space having to accidentally get married because of cultural differences or different things, like 5 times, and then they do eventually actually get married because of those accidental marriages in the past. It's so sweet, and it's shorter. I think it's only like 20k around there. Man, I just couldn't stop smiling when I was reading it because it's really funny, and the hurt comfort is real. I am a whore for hurt comfort. That is who I am.
No, like, if there's any genre that I tend to write, it's definitely angst.
Give me some of that sweet, sweet angst.
I'm gonna mine these characters until they just break open into a well of trauma.
It's because I have my own drama. Anyway, Something Smart to Do by kianspo. Really, really funny. Really, really sweet. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Rose, so much. It has been so much fun talking to you about this really intense, weird little, well, pretty long fic that everybody happens to know about, but probably doesn't know a whole lot about. They just hear it, willy-nilly on the internet. Yeah, thank you for your expertise in this subject.
I didn't ask for this legacy, but I accept it nonetheless.
You bear it with grace.
If anybody wants to send me like a prayer candle with ebony on it, I will happily display that in my room.
Do you have a Twitter or anything that you would like us to plug for you?
I should probably plug my Tumblr, considering that's where this all started. It's Daphne Blake's, like the Scooby-Doo character with an extra S on the end.
Mm-hmm.
My Twitter, I'm not as active on. I tweet more about, like, books over there, because book Twitter is a whole other minefield in and of itself. But that's at Rachel_Redrose. That's one word. And then my Instagram is Rose_crowned.
Rose_crowned. Okay, so we will have all of those links if you want to hear more fun ideas and opinions from Rose. Thank you so much. I think we're done.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Just briefly before we sign off, this is a reminder that we only have a couple of weeks left on our fic club, War Children by Nonymos, so please read that and send in all of your thoughts and questions. I guess that's it, so we'll see y'all next week on
Fangirls Anonymous. Bye!